Hello, welcome to our very first result show of Spitting Seconds, right? So this will be the result of episode one. Vintage watches is better than modern Rolexes. And the plan is to have this result show after every single episode that we've done to showcase the results of who's the winner, and also to have us add in our thoughts and also reflections and also some additional feedbacks on how we could have done better. Right. And over to you, Woody.
All right. Thanks, James. So essentially, for those of you who participated, the poll actually went online for 2 consecutive days, and we then tabulated the results so that we would then be able to see what the result was. So by doing that, we actually had 238 unique votes. So thank you so much to everyone who voted. And without further ado, let me share the results. So it was a very close call. I managed to win it just by a little bit. There was enough people calling it a draw that I think that if we had done a little bit more, I think James could have easily taken this. So it's a little small pat on my back for the first episode, but this was a very close one. So James, what do you think you would have said different that maybe would have swayed the 47 or even some from my side to go over to your side?
Right. So I think after the very first episode, right, then I realized that while having a lot of points and stuff, actually talking about it live, it's actually quite intense. So I think with the time crunch and everything, there's a lot of things that I missed out. I could have actually said, which is probably I wouldn't say a missing point, but probably more how do I refine my points.
Right.
To let's say if I talk about the Burberry and stuff like that, it's more leaning on the authenticity of your product, right? And so, for example, you may buy a vintage Rolex and it's very difficult for you to authenticate it. Authenticate it in multiple different sense. You may have all your parts correct, but wrong at the same time, right? So what I meant by that is it's authentic products, but it's not period corrected, right? So that's probably what I didn't mention to talk about. And probably in terms of the modern Rolex side, I think it's also to talk about on how it has evolved and becoming a product that people actually want, right? So I think if talk about how in terms of previously bezel faded and everything like that, now with ceramic, it doesn't fade, and maybe that's actually what people want, what they created a product, and adding because watches are in a way no longer a necessity, they tweak it to become a more of a luxury product, shinier, blingier, less tool-like, but that is actually what the people want from the brand. So I think these are the 2 points that I think I could have done better, and I think and refinements here and there I could have said better as well. Yeah.
I personally think, right, if you had thrown the example of my experience with vintage Rolex, that would have been a very powerful point. And I think to add on to what James is saying, just for the audience, the reality is, aside from the topic, this is as unscripted as it gets. That's why you notice both James and I were writing at the same time while we were listening, because that would be the very first time we're hearing the points. So that's why James is absolutely correct. It's actually incredibly tough to think of the points on the fly, especially in round 3 and 4, right? Where you really have to react to what the other party is saying. But that's the nature of the format. So I don't think I would have been able to add much more on my end. I actually feel that if you had taken that personal experience of mine and used it as an example, I may have just lost this entire debate by personal experience alone. So that's my own admission. As we've mentioned before, these are all just for the sake of entertainment, and they don't necessarily reflect our points of view, but we will be able to test a much bigger extreme on that regard with any of the topics we raise as a result of that. We don't have to be so diplomatic as a result, in other words. So James, anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up to the last segment of this short video?
Not really, but just to provide context to the audience, right? So the personal experience that Woody mentioned is essentially his vintage date, which is authentic, but has several parts that are not period corrected. So there you go.
Correct. So the pains he was talking about, there was a real example sitting next to him, right? And I was just praying he didn't raise it.
Oh well, I mean, that's something to take note of personal experience for next episode then.
All right. Speaking of the next episode, it's my pleasure to tell you all, giving you a first-hand view. So exactly the same time on Sunday, we'll be dropping this episode. It's going to be a very fiery one because what we're saying, at least one of us is saying, all Tudor fanboys are Rolex fanboys. And somebody gets to be a bit fiery, somebody gets to be a bit more diplomatic. So stay tuned for that. We'll be hoping that more of you can join us. And as usual, we'll hope to get your votes for the next episode as well.
Definitely. And just for a very last point, as mentioned as well, this is very much a pilot season for us. We've been doing a couple of episodes, and we're very much happy to take in any feedback, criticisms, or anything that you think that we could have done better in terms of formats or whatsoever, right? Just feel free to drop us a DM, comment, whatever you need to do to reach us.
Correct. You can put it on the YouTube video itself as comments, or you can even DM us directly on our Instagram accounts. So thank you so much for everyone. James, for you to close.
All right. See you in the next one, guys.
All right. See y'all. Bye.